Welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast, where we're addressing the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. Join us each week as we spark a midlife renewal and create a firm foundation for the next wonderful, exciting, awesome season of life.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. It is great to be here with you. I'm Curtis and I'm here with my fellow host, Karen.
Good morning, everybody.
Karen, good morning. Did you know, Karen, that today is the 6-month anniversary of our podcast?
Well, I probably should have known that, but actually I didn't. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And we want to thank everybody our fans, really, the ones that have shared the podcast with others. I was in a meeting with somebody the other day and she told me her doctor told her, you should listen to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is really exciting. And actually, as I'm reflecting on this, it seems like that went by really fast. And at the same time, you know, there's a lot that's gone on for everybody in the last 6 months. So I would echo that, Curtis. Thank you to our listeners, to those who have really connected with what we've been about and who've shared this with others. It's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, we really are grateful. Mm-hmm. And we're bringing you value every week.
We are, to the best of our ability.
To the best of our ability. And hope was one of the big themes that we talked about in our very first episode.
I remember.
And hope is an appropriate virtue for midlife because what, Karen?
Well, I would say it's appropriate because in midlife, in this season, it's actually very easy to get discouraged and to lack hope for a lot of different reasons. Like, for example, you know, we're looking back over our life and we're thinking, boy, I wish I had made some different decisions, or I'm feeling regret about some choices I made.
Oh, the regret monkeys are plucking at you.
Exactly. Or I'm looking back and thinking the best of my life is behind me and there's not a whole lot ahead. And that's very discouraging if I have that mindset.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And I think there's also a temptation that, well, we're tired. We can be really tired at this stage. And actually, I think it's extremely appropriate, my friends, to call some timeouts, to have some sabbatical times in your life where you recover, where you just recover.
Right.
But at the same time, being tired and wanting to just, coast on out, exit stage left, I would put that under the category of temptation. Mm-hmm. We have more hope than that. Right, Karen?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Karen, I'm reading Jacques Philippe, and he's somebody that we really love on the podcast. He is such a down the middle, but yet muscular and clear expositor of the spiritual life. I'm reading his Way of Trust and Love again, and this is he calls it a retreat based on the spirituality of Teresa Lisieux.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, so it's the Way of Trust and Love. He says, so what's the number one enemy of the spiritual life? Well, he says it's discouragement.
Aha.
And I don't think I would have picked that right off the bat, coming out of the gate. Discouragement. But it's so true. And we were just talking about hope. And the thing about discouragement, well, why do you think he says that?
Well, to me, I think of discouragement, and the image that pops to mind is like getting stuck in quicksand or some really thick, goopy mud. It keeps you stuck and you can't move forward. And to me, that's why, because one of the central things in the spiritual life is just to keep taking the next step, just to do the next thing and keep moving forward. So to me, discouragement is you're totally stuck. You don't see a way forward, or you feel like you can't take the next step.
Your most important step is the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's that come from?
That's Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, that's the science fiction /
The Way of Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, author. So so if you're into fantasy, check out Brandon Sanderson. It's a family favorite.
Yeah, for sure. So discouragement, it just sucks us down and we're not moving forward. And in life, right, if we're not moving forward, we're probably moving backward. The thing that gets me that seems a little unfair about discouragement, Karen, is
what is
when I'm discouraged, I feel like God should come rescue me.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be calling down grace. Oh, I'm discouraged. Okay, come rescue me because, hey, if I'm stuck, that means I need help, right? So God should like hasten to my rescue.
Right. Whereas in that book that you were just saying, the Jacques Philippe book, Therese talks about how discouragement isn't what attracts grace. It's the littleness.
I guess it's not that attractive. Whoa, where. So the thing about discouragement is, and of course, I'm not saying God isn't going to come to my rescue, but I think my problem is I need to understand it as a block that if I'm discouraged, I'm doing something to block the grace. And that means I need to do something to stop blocking it.
Right.
It's a call to action. It's a signal. Oh, I need to do something.
So what would be some antidotes to discouragement, or what would be part of getting yourself out of that stuck state?
Well, here I think in terms of energy shifting, which is just some coach language, meaning I have to look at myself. And usually when I'm discouraged, I'm thinking that I'm powerless, that I don't have any choices, that there's nothing I can do, that I'm a victim of the circumstances or the people around me, that others are controlling my fate.
Right. And I like that word that you used, powerlessness. I think that's really a good word for how we feel when we're confronted with situations in life we feel like we don't have control over, or even aspects of ourselves that aren't perhaps where we would wish them to be. I think Therese calls this our inner poverty or our spiritual poverty, or kind of the inability in ourselves to be who we want to be and do what we want to do.
Yeah, so Philippe says the message to her from God was, instead of bearing your interior poverty as a handicap, an obstacle, accept it and welcome it as a grace.
Yeah, I really like that, Curtis, because it talks about acceptance. And I think this is another really important aspect to getting ourselves out of discouragement. Because in a lot of ways, when we're discouraged, we're trying to fight the reality that we see, whether it's external to us or internal. And there's a necessary step of acceptance that moves us out of the stuck state and towards an active state.
Yeah, fighting reality is a losing proposition. It doesn't work out, which incidentally is a big reason for us to be encouraged as Christians, is we have the ultimate reality on our side.
Yeah.
And we can also be encouraged because even as we accept the reality of our inner poverty, and elsewhere, Philippe says, inner poverty is the norm.
Right.
And Teresa of Lisieux says, oh, I'm not surprised by anything I do anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes me laugh. I mean, if she can say that. So acceptance it's such a wonderful discipline that helps us to on our road to holiness.
Right. Right.
It helps us in so many areas in trust in God, in humility, in living in the present moment, in having gratitude.
Right.
So often things aren't going well in life, but if we can accept them, it's easier for us to be grateful for the things we have and the things that are going well.
Right. I think a lot of people think of acceptance as, well, if I accept this about myself or about reality, then I'm giving into it. I'm saying that it's okay, or that I like it, or that I'm not going to change it or choose something different. And that it's hard to get past that for some people.
Yeah, there's a tremendous fear of being complacent.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, if I'm not beating myself up, if I'm not angry with myself, if I'm not telling myself how bad I am, then, oh, I'm being complacent. But really what's happening is you're just creating obstacles for yourself. You're creating division within yourself.
Right. If you fail to accept.
When you fail to accept. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I've seen this a lot in clients, that when true acceptance comes for them, it's like they have this new power to move forward, to take different action, to make new choices. It's instead of closing them down, it opens them up to new places.
Yeah, you hear the
Yeah.
you see the shoulders, you see the entire body is releasing that useless, I don't know, we just call it energy for lack of, it's this useless energy that's resisting what's happening. And all of a sudden, okay, that's how it is. That's what I did. That's who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
But now I can make new choices.
Yes. And that's really a moment when there's this power to receive grace. And I think Therese even says that, like coming with acceptance and humility is like a magnet for God's grace. And it really is true that when we get over that mountain of non-acceptance, there's a new place of grace for us.
Yeah, and failing to accept ourselves, that's resisting grace.
Mm-hmm.
As always, we have to remember that God loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do our part and love ourselves and let ourselves be loved.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a client I had a while ago, and she was saying that, there's this part of me that wants to do things this way and be this way. And then there's this other part of me, I really hate that part. And I'm going to move forward when I can overcome that part that I hate. But really what was happening was she was creating this inner conflict where she was fighting herself instead of accepting where this part of her was and where it was coming from, and really integrating it in a way so that she could move forward.
Yeah, so this is an example of having that inner agitation when interior peace was perhaps available with acceptance.
Yeah. So instead of fighting herself, she could move into a place of acceptance and then move forward more powerfully.
Well, here's a little different example. So this is a workplace, and here's a gentleman. He used to be pretty close with his boss and get, some of the better assignments and just get the love and attention, frankly. And you guys know what I mean. Just when you're in the loop, you're in the group. But he wasn't in favor so much anymore, and it was really aggravating. It really made him down, and he had to accept that, frankly, his boss was pretty self-centered and pretty transactional and mercurial. And sometimes his boss was going to, shine the light and the sun on him. And sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes he was going to forget about him and leave him out of the important meetings. And he had to accept that, even as he worked on communicating and managing his boss and all those other things we can do. At the end of the day, there was some acceptance that he wasn't going to get everything that he wanted from that particular relationship. And then he was able to move on and not give that boss so much mental real estate.
Interesting. So it's almost like instead of spending all that energy trying to change the reality, in accepting the reality, then that person could decide how to respond and not just really have it be a huge energy suck.
Yeah. Trying to use energy to change the reality. That's a great description. Often we see this when we ruminate. And Karen, I am a champion ruminator, frankly.
You get the ruminator crown?
I get the ruminator crown. And often it's because there's something I'm not accepting. And so I keep going over and over it and trying to find something that I can change or trying to find a loophole or whatever. But the reality is I have to accept that, I did something poorly, or I'm not living up to whatever, or that person doesn't like me and they don't have to like me. It's not their job or whatever it is. That rumination, at some point, I have to get in that loop and just recognize, okay, going over this one more time, it's not helping me. What is it I have to accept here so that I can make some choices about how I want to act, what I want to do, what's going to work for me, what's good.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking also that failing to accept ourselves is a real block to receiving God's own acceptance of us and God's love for us. So God can be accepting us as we are. But if we're not accepting ourselves, we can't receive that from the Lord. It's like a block to receiving what God has for us. And maybe I'm just reiterating that point that acceptance opens us up to a new kind of grace and love from God.
Yeah, we have to be reconciled with ourselves in our weakness and poverty. That's the Philippe word, reconciled with ourselves.
Oh, I like that
in
phrase.
Our weakness and poverty. And so instead of bearing your poverty as a handicap, accept it and welcome it as a grace. God's words to Teresa, or the gist of the communication.
Right. Curtis, we've mentioned so far a few things about discouragement and about getting unstuck from the quicksand of discouragement, like shifting our attitude, shifting the kind of energy we're bringing, and really this idea of self-acceptance as kind of a way through discouragement and a way into grace. And it makes me think of very important skill that we've seen be so effective with many of our clients, which is learning how to practice self-compassion. And I've really seen it be very helpful moving people through discouragement and into a new place. Would you agree?
Yeah, the practice of self-compassion has been central, or it's been essential rather, for pretty much everyone.
Right.
There's reasons for that, reasons rooted in our human nature. Mm-hmm. And on the more spiritual side of things, of course, and in midlife especially, there's this lurking discouragement. There's this resistance to how things are often. And it just turns out that self-compassion is, well, it's so important to self-acceptance. And it's so important because it's a gateway, it's a key to self-acceptance, but also, so often our conflicts and relationships, they have an element of something in us that we're not accepting, that we're bringing to that conflict, that's stoking the situation that's unhelpful. And having some self-compassion can just let us, okay, admit, yeah, all right, this is, okay, I am like that. All right. So
Right.
I'll deal with that as best I can. And now I can separate that from the other parts of the conflict.
I think we should have a season on self-compassion because I don't think most of us really understand what it is. And we might say to ourselves, oh, yeah, I should be a little more compassionate, or I should stop beating myself up. And then it's unclear how exactly we do that. And the thing about self-compassion as a practice is there actually are skills we can learn that teach us how to do that.
Yeah, we have to do it. It sounds so puny, but the reality is it creates tremendous strength and resilience and capacity to move forward and to move into hope and the promise of magnanimity that lurks in that for all of us.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So if you are curious about working with us, about what that would look like, go to our website, thecatholicmidlife.com, click the big orange consult button, and book a conversation with us. We can see how we could work together and if it's a great fit. It's great to be here with you this week, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Midlife podcast. It's great to be here with you. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite app or platform. Leave a review. That's so helpful so that others like you can find the podcast. And be sure to tell your friends. We'll see you next week.